Welcome back, friends, to the Hill of Roses, where we come once again to celebrate the voices on the social left. Today, like we had done with our first episode, this is our first group of Me Plus 3 interviews where we're bringing in some progressive friends who aren't just your average mainstream pundits so that we can truly have all the voices at the table be heard. Like we had done with our first episode, in this first batch of releases, the first weekend reaction to the debates is the focus of the day. So what we're going to be doing here is we're going to allow each person to respond to one of our questions, and then they'll be able to respond to each other after that so that we don't have people stepping on each other's toes. So I first want to come and welcome our guests today. We have Will, David, and Josh. Would you guys mind introducing yourself to the crowd? Just tell us your name, then tell us your profession, and then where you're from. Will, do you mind starting us off?
Sure. My name is Will Tomlinson. I am from upstate New York. Currently, I work at McDonald's, which is wonderful. Absolutely terrific, you know. And I am I'm still moving left, I think, politically. So this is going to be fun.
Yeah, we're glad to have you on. David, want to introduce yourself to the folks out there?
Who's this David you're talking about? I have no idea what you're talking about.
Ooh, we want to go full Brandon. We got the Centrist today here, folks.
Cynical centrist, thank you very much.
Centrist.
I am the cynical centrist. I was originally, I've kind of gone all over the political spectrum in my life. I was a conservative when I was a child. I turned liberal, and now I'm obviously a centrist, but not a centrist in the traditional sense. I'm so sick of hearing centrist equals corporate. Oh, fuck you. So I'm kind of in the moderate. I have a lot of liberal views. I have a lot of conservative views, and overall, I'm actually glad to be on this podcast. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, we're glad to have you as well. Josh, want to introduce yourself to the friends out there?
Of course. So the name is Bond, Josh Bond. I am a advertising sales assistant from Disney, originally from Suffern, New York. And my political views, I would say for the majority to the left, but definitely do have more conservative views in certain areas. And, you know, I just hope by 2020 that Donald Trump is out of Washington, D.C.
Yeah, well, we're glad to have you on, Josh. So the first thing I wanted to focus on is really getting what were your perceptions coming into our debates. Will, what did you think? Who were you looking at, and what were your expectations for nights 1 and 2?
Well, on night one, I think I expected, like everybody, I think Warren was going to do pretty well. She pretty much lived up to that. I was looking specifically, me personally, on night one. I was watching Tulsi. I was hoping that she was going to do well. I actually also was looking at Bill de Blasio just because he always markets himself as a crazy leftist, which is interesting to watch in debates. On night two, I really was looking forward to watching Biden. I was hoping he would crash. I was watching everybody thinking they were going to team up on both Sanders and Biden being the front runners, and I was watching Kamala to lead the way on that, which, you know, how that went. So that's really what I was looking for.
Yeah, I gotta say, I agree with a lot of those things in terms of the focus was always going to be on the front runners and how everyone else is going to contend with them, both Warren in night 1, and then we had Bernie and Joe Biden on night 2. So next, I want cynical centrist. What do you think? What were you going in with into these 2 nights? Being that you're not necessarily camp left, this might have been a night of confusion for you in some respects.
No, not really, actually. I believe it or not, even though I am centrist, I do think economic progressive policies are superior to economic conservative policies. So at least on the economic end, I'm probably more left. I would say that first off, night 1, Elizabeth Warren got screwed in the random draw. I think the RNG gods hated her. And I wanted to see how she was going to respond, being in a field where it wasn't, very well-known candidates and not many eyes were going to be on her. Could she just dominate it? Because she had to dominate in night one in order to get any notice whatsoever. For night two, pretty much the objective was for at least 5 of the candidates, and the 5 being Kamala Harris, Pete Buttigieg, Bernie Sanders, Andrew Yang, and to a lesser extent, Marianne Williamson, take down Joe Biden. And I was actually interested to see how that would go down. Andrew Yang, especially, a lot of people had him as the smart, sexy pick to break out of the debates, and wanted to see how he would break out in a tougher, stacked field. And for me personally, Marianne Williamson did a very good job during the Poor People's Campaign, but came off lacking a bit of substance. So I want to see how that would fare against, the rest of the field in night two.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I think, interestingly, the people you had pointed out in that night two ended up being still some of the highest searched individuals, despite getting the least amount of speaking time. So
yeah, but
I think
that was expected, right? Night two was stacked. That's all I'm saying.
night two was definitely stacked.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Josh, what do you think? What were you thinking going into these debates, and who were you kind of focusing on?
So the question what was your expectations heading into each night and the candidates you had eyes on the pre-debate? So my expectations for the night were, correct me if I'm wrong, there are 24 candidates running for the primaries, correct?
Well, interestingly enough, like 2 days before the primaries, one person decided, you know what? It doesn't matter that it's so late. I'm jumping in anyway. So
Okay.
Joe Sestak added number 25 to the race.
Okay, so 25. So within the 25 candidates, I wanted to see who was honestly going to have a legitimate chance of possibly being the person chosen to run against Trump. So I thought Elizabeth Warren actually came off very strong in night one. I also thought that in night two, it was interesting to see that Kamala really challenged Joe Biden on it supporting the segregationists with the whole busing issue that happened. Like that, really showed me her character and like her not like being afraid to take on somebody who I guess was in the polls considered the front runner. So that was interesting to see. I thought Bernie did a really good job. Always, keeps his answers consistent to the questions and his policies that he wants to introduce if he was elected. Even Andrew Yang, I thought, did a really good job also in night two. Really interesting to hear about his plan about giving $1,000 to Americans. I think that's a really cool policy, and like I'm totally for that. If he was elected as well for the Democrats.
Yeah, so I gotta ask, I agree with a lot of those sentiments. Was there anyone going in you were thinking they have to make a name for themselves tonight? This is the most important night for them, night one?
I think Joe Biden, to be honest with you, like he's the front runner, right? So like he was self-correcting himself. Like there was like a lot of like facts. I think that he got confused. Like I think he got really like shooken up after that like little thing he had with Kamala. I mean, it wasn't even little. Like it was actually pretty big. So yeah, I mean, I think this was his chance to really get a strong lead out of the gate, and I think he failed to do that, in my opinion.
I agree with you there. What do you guys think in terms of like there was many gaffe and interesting one-liner and speech of the night. What do you guys think brought the most entertainment value to the table from nights 1 and 2? Will, what do you think really struck you as a memorable moment?
Boy. Night one, my favorite moment was Tulsi Gabbard telling Tim Ryan that the Taliban didn't attack us on 9/11. I thought that was excellent. I laughed. I actually laughed. I don't usually do that when I'm watching debates. As far as night two, entertainment for me personally, I thought Kamala Harris going after Biden provided entertainment value, but that's just me.
Hey, I think a lot of people might echo that sentiment. People have been all rallying to take Joe down because no one can possibly fathom why is he at the top. So yeah, I agree. There's
Name
some
recognition.
satisfaction. No, well,
It's
yeah,
way-
name recognition.
Yeah,
But you'd
oh,
think
yeah.
by this
Remember
point, it's bad
Obama?
name recognition.
I
Yeah, it's
remember.
true.
Yeah, we remember.
Yeah.
Remember Obama? Vote for me. You'll get Obama back.
Yep.
So, cynical centrist, are you going to echo those similar sentences? Are we taking the takedown of Joe Biden as the most entertaining moments of the nights 1 and 2?
Well, actually, I'm going to go purely on entertainment value here. Nothing on substance or anything. I'm going to say night 1, the most entertaining thing for me, and I guess this became a meme, and I'm using this as a meme. That look Cory Booker and Elizabeth Warren gave when Beto just started randomly speaking Spanish.
Oh, fuck you. I was going to say that.
That was great. All right. Let me tell you that look. They looking at him like, the fuck, bro? What are you doing? And they're just
That was a beautiful moment.
Master
It was
Debato.
like-
It was hilarious.
Yeah, Beto, yeah, that immediately told me right there he was going to finish bottom tier, if not pretty much lost the night.
Yeah, I think the true bad part of that moment is even after doing I'm going to take the whole speech time to do it in Spanish, when posed the question straight to him, complete no answer. Like, any person can see that was a dodge. You don't have to be a political expert to see. He dodged in Spanish, he then dodged again in English.
And you guys are going to love this, but if you went on closed caption, all right? And you go on closed caption, like he will speak in English first, right? So it will show the English words. And then when he starts speaking in Spanish, the caption just starts speaking in Spanish.
So you're not even going to be able to read that in English subtitles in that case?
Exactly. So obviously this hurt accessibility issues, which is much needed for a Democrat primary. And it was just, I mean, I don't know who told him that, but he needs to fire whoever gave him that for a strategy. Honorable mention I will give, though, Marianne Williamson's closing speech. Which, by the way, go on Twitter. Go on Twitter. I actually retweeted this. I retweeted someone putting her entire closing speech to the background music of Twin Peaks.
I saw that. Yeah, I've seen that. That was a good backdrop.
Look, I'm a sucker for closing speeches, all right?
Yeah, I think we all are. Josh, what do you think? What was your most entertaining moments from nights 1 and 2?
Yeah, well, I mean, as it's already been said, I mean, Spanish Beto was pretty funny. I mean, like, all the candidates actually just speaking in Spanish. Yeah, it was in Miami, so I guess, like, you have a large portion of the city that is from either, like, Cuban descent or, just from other Spanish-speaking nations. And then in the second night, yeah, I mean... Oh, well, also in the first night, I don't know if you guys remember, there was also when Bill de Blasio was talking about how he had he's in a biracial marriage, right? So he has a black son, and then Cory Booker just, like, jumped all over him, like, by saying, well, wait a minute, like, I'm, like, a African-American candidate, too. Like, he was saying, I think that he, like, had the only... person represented in the black community in his actual family of that nature. And then in the second night, trying to think. Oh yeah, I mean, I think Marianne was also great in night 2. I mean, she was hilarious. She definitely added the comedy in the debate. And, I mean, people didn't really know about her. I mean, isn't she, like, Oprah's, like guru or something like that? It's like, Oprah, like, sent her instead of running for president, like, in my opinion. It was like, I'm too busy right now.
Yeah, I'm waiting on Oprah to endorse her. I guarantee you that if she endorses her, Marianne Williamson will be top tier tomorrow.
I don't know if we're gonna go all the way to the top tier, but she could get into that dark horse group. I'll give Oprah's endorsement that credit.
I just can't wait for SNL to do Marianne Williamson and like it's gonna be like Kate McKinnon like who does it or something like that. And like
Oh, that's a
she's
good
gonna
choice.
fucking deal and then it's gonna be fucking hilarious.
Yeah, I got to agree. I think the whole Twitter reaction afterwards, going with the Marianne Williamson's energy is type memes, really representing that like crystal power type thinking and love. So I think that was a super funny moment. But I gotta say, your point about De Blasio and Booker was spot on. I think when you say, I got a black son, and the guy right next to you is like, wait, I get this problem. I am black in America. And you're saying no one on here gets that at all. Like,
so for those who don't know, like me and John are actually housemates. And we were watching it and I was just like, just straight out of Family Guy when they did like the bit like my black son. Like it was just like, oh my god, if you were to make that into a meme, like that would be fucking hilarious. Like yeah, I don't know. Like it was just such a foolish thing to say, I think. Like I mean like come on, bro, really?
yeah, I agree with you. I think Bill de Blasio overall had a strong performance, but that was one of the head shakers of his evening.
Yeah. And then the Russian comment he also made was also stupid. Like I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, as New Yorkers, we can all digress on Bill de Blasio all day, potentially, but he's always been progressive in his rhetoric when campaigning. So I actually wanted to talk kind of on that note. What do you guys think were some of the most interesting strategies that people used in the evening? So, Will, what do you think? What was the most interesting strategy you noted from any of the candidates?
The most interesting strategy, probably Kamala going a lot further than I thought, going after Biden. I did not think she would go as far as she did, as far as attacking him directly. I thought that was really interesting to me. Other than that, I thought Delaney butting in was hilarious over and over again at the wrong times all the time, and it was embarrassing. And I don't know what kind of strategy it was, but it was interesting to me. And I thought on night two, another interesting thing I noticed was halfway through, Gillibrand kind of stopped doing the interrupty thing and started sort of interjecting at more appropriate times and getting her point across a lot better. And I thought she kind of adapted to that a lot better. I think she came out a lot better than people. Nobody's talking about her really a whole lot, but I think she did better than people realize, at least in the second half. If people stuck around to the second half, that's probably all they remember anyway.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think Gillibrand was a actually pretty noteworthy person from those debates. I was kind of expecting her to guaranteed to be in the bottom half of that field, and I think she ended up ending it in the top 5 for sure.
Oh yeah.
So that
well, she was the only one to speak about family leave the whole debate too.
Well, and also the federally matching, election funds in her, public
True.
finance campaign for, getting money out of our politics. So I think she did that very interestingly. And I think the other thing she did very interestingly was that she kept on trying to be a connector of candidates on the stage, saying like, you got it partially wrong and you got it partially wrong. We got to meet in the middle here. I actually did that. I was on your legislation. She just kept on trying to connect herself to the other people on the stage, like saying, we've worked together, almost like a neutralization strategy. So, Cynical Centrist, what do you think? What were some of the most interesting strategies you saw from the debates?
Strategy?
Yeah, just strategies.
How can you make strategy with this 60 seconds to answer a question, 30 seconds to respond on some of the most important issues of our time? Are you kidding me?
Here.
How are you going to make a strategy on that? Well, okay, there was one major strategy in night 2, and that was take Joe Biden down. And as I said, there were 5 people who could do that were capable of doing that. And actually 6, because Gillibrand did do a very good job. But initially, I was thinking 5 people were going to gang up on Biden like a pack of hyenas. Kamala Harris did it by herself. That, I would say, was very good strategy. That she went aggressively on Joe Biden, and people said, "Oh, she was too aggressive." Too aggressive? Come on. She did what was meant. She did what she was meant to do, which was take Joe Biden down and find some kind of holes in the armor to make him less electable. So to me, it's just a matter of, that was basically the strategy that I observed. Mostly, though, I think it's just very difficult for candidates to get their word out and actually get any real policy out with this kind of a format.
Yeah, I think things are going to get a little bit better as the field consolidates. I think having simply 10 people on stage is just too many when we know that this race at this point really has 7 to maybe, if you're being generous, 12 candidates in total that have impact on the future coming into 2020. So
Right,
I
but
think,
they could have fixed this.
Yeah.
And I actually had a suggestion that could fix it. They could have made this a 3-night thing. They can take out Hickenlooper and Delaney because no one cares. And just with the remaining 18, have them, cut them up to 6 candidates per night. And you can have a top tier candidate, one of, Biden, Bernie, Warren in each night, and just have the rest of them shuffled. And then you could have yourselves an actual real debate.
Yeah,
Rather than just, shooting one-liners everywhere. That's actually was my most well, I'll talk about that later, but that was one of my big disappointments regarding that. But hard to do any real strategy with that absolute mess.
Yeah, I got to agree. First, noting on your earlier point on Kamala, I think everyone had to understand going in she was going to try and use that prosecutorial zeal that she's been known for as like an AG, as well as her grilling people on the Senate Judiciary Committee. So I think her going in, anyone expecting her not to try and be someone as a prosecutor of Joe Biden's whole career probably was being a little foolish going into the night. But I think she executed it very well, which was where I didn't know if she was going to have that success. And then also on your point, where we just didn't have enough time for each of these people to talk, I totally agree. I think that structure makes a lot of sense. I'd be a little curious how that would kind of be heavy-handed on the DNC truly crafting the lineup. But I agree in terms of the actual quality would have been higher if that was the format.
Oh,
So,
I just read a DM about this. Best strategy of the night. Someone asks you a question, don't answer the question.
that is also very true. People just wanted to get to their bread and butter to sell people on who they are. And when you get
What can
people
you
like
do?
Yang with 2.5 minutes, of course you got to mention UBI for at least half of that.
Oh, that was
right.
my response.
You can't get to the rest of it. So yeah, Josh, letting you in here, what did you think were some of the most interesting strategies? Obviously, Yang was something you were thinking there.
Yeah, I mean, the UBIs, he went full into detail on, how he was going to develop that. And I made a comment on it earlier. Who wouldn't want to have $1,000 each month? And if you save that, over time, that's going to turn into pretty nice saving for your future. So I'm totally for that. And also, I thought, again, I would say Bernie is probably the candidate that I support the most in the race. And I think that how he keeps on talking about single-payer healthcare is really important at this time in the country. I think everybody needs to have the ability to go see a doctor if they are sick or they need some type of medical treatment. And every other country, around the world has it. It's time that the U.S. Catches up, and I think Bernie is the only one who would get it done, in the first, few weeks within his presidency if he was elected.
Ooh, weeks. That's ambitious. I will say it's going to be likely a forceful push for it, but I think you're absolutely right in trusting Bernie to be the only one to deliver a single-payer solution. And I think that was one of the most interesting distinctions that Nights 1 and 2 tried to paint is, do you support a Medicare for all single-payer solution, or do you support a Medicare for all public option, or are you just not right? So then we have to go and think, what are really the biggest distinctions that were between nights 1 and nights 2 of the debate? Will, what did you think about that?
I think night one went a little better besides the little audio issue. I think more like actual policy got talked about. However, I think on night two, more actual politicking got done, which, I mean, for better or for worse, I think it'll be good once we move on and can get rid of some candidates and get rid of Joe Biden. I would love that. And that would be great for everybody. So I think more actually got done on night two, but I think we talked more about policy on night one, which overall is probably more helpful. So I think that's the biggest difference between the two of them, to be honest.
Yeah, I can echo that. I think when you have so much crossfire talk and people trying to go at each other in night 2, the actual substance of what they're trying to propose gets a little bit lost in the sauce. Cynical Centrist, what do you think? Is that the biggest distinction of the night?
Yeah, I'm in agreement with them. I'm definitely in agreement. Debate two was a lot more quarrelsome, a lot more chickens clucking, so to speak. Some of the bigger names were up there, so you're expecting that. Some of the people that have more substance in their policies, like not Warren, my bad, Sanders and Yang. Basically, the only people I felt like in night one that had any real substance to them going into it was Elizabeth Warren and Tulsi Gabbard, and maybe Bill de Blasio in the sense that nobody liked him. But other than that, I mean, yeah, night two definitely that was the distinction. Of course, it felt like the audio guys were not as prepared in night one either. So, 4-minute commercial break, really?
Yeah, I gotta agree. I think that's definitely a noteworthy distinction of the nights. Josh, what do you think? Do you agree, or is there another distinction that we haven't covered here that's really needed to be told?
Okay, so this is what I believe. Night one was the weaker of the two. I think this was the first debate, and NBC wanted to get it perfect, and unfortunately they had a technical issue. I mean, it happens, but you knew that the Republicans were gonna jump all over it. Like Trump even tweeted about it, of course. I mean, no surprise there, but but I think it was really Warren against the field, and then yes, you had some of the other people like De Blasio and Tulsi, who Tulsi did a better job in the second part of the debate. De Blasio was pretty consistent throughout the night. He did make a few comments that didn't necessarily agree with. And then night two was, I think, who are going to be our legitimate contenders for who's going to ultimately be in the top tier. So you had Sanders, you had Yang, I'm still going to say Biden, and Kamala Harris, who I think overall did the best job between the two nights.
Yeah, I gotta say, it's interesting, that you noted that Yang got into the top tier from this group, despite being in these low percentages and being able to not talk at all. I think him getting the few minutes that he did and just kind of planting that seed of who he is into most people's mind of the UBI you were mentioning before made everyone just want to look him up. So maybe it was to his benefit that he has this new anti-media narrative around him, that his apparent mic was being cut off, that he got no speaking time during the debate. He's been trying to really utilize this new narrative. And I think it was also interesting that you said before that the quality in the two debates was so distinct just from the people that were there. It makes me wonder, do you guys think that narrative going in of there being a kiddie debate and an adult table debate that they all worried was going to be what happened with the Republicans in 2016, did we get that anyway? Will, what do you think?
In a way we did. I think except for Warren, which there's a conspiracy theory that they separated her from Joe Biden because she loves going after him. So, but in a way, I still think we definitely got the kids table and the adult table, which was unfortunate. But the format, again, there's problems up and down with it. There's all sorts of ways it could have been a whole lot better.
Yeah, I agree. Cynical Centrist, what do you think? Was it a kitty table debate night one?
The RNG gods were not kind to Elizabeth Warren. They were not. I feel absolutely horrible for her regarding that. But at the same time, you know what? The way that night two went down, maybe it was better for her to not be a part of that night one.
Mm.
I'm saying not night one, my bad, night two. So, I mean, a lot of it was that she knew that she was going up against a bunch of, I mean, it wasn't entirely just, okay, she's not going to face any of the big five, but remember, sixth and seventh, the current sixth and seventh were in night one as well, which was Beto O'Rourke and Cory Booker. So it wasn't an absolute, guarantee that no one was going to watch. But yes, there were considerably less people in night one. It did have that kiddie table kind of feeling. And I think that might have actually hurt the image of O'Rourke and Booker more than it did Warren, though, because Warren was clearly the star of the show. She got the most time. She got the most questions, I think, especially early on, and where the most people were watching. So,
Yeah, I tend to agree with you that it was a big distinction in those two like nights. But I think Warren being that linchpin of night one action, everything being centered on how is she going to perform. The rest of the field was just, can I stay in the race to the next rounds and maybe build a little bit up and get momentum? Warren was saying, do I justify these surges in my poll numbers recently that have said I am in the top tier with Biden and Sanders? Josh, what do you think? Was there a kitty table feel that was that distinct that we had exactly what the Republicans kind of had in their tiering, or was it still competitive and enjoyable to see both nights?
Yeah, I mean, I think whether you agree or disagree how the format was of the debate, I mean, I guess that was the network's decision, or what they agreed upon between both parties. I'm not. I'm guessing it was it was NBC that decided to go with the 60 seconds. But I mean, in that time, that's what it is. And the people that came prepared and gave their best responses are the people who are ultimately going to uh, be the finalists here. And Elizabeth Warren was that in night one, uh, and she came off really strong. And in night two, uh, the people who were really starting to, I think, as you commented, John, like starting to plant their roots of policy, like Andrew Yang and Bernie and Gillibrand and Harris. So yeah, I do think that night one was maybe not as sexy as night two, but I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see, like, as the field gets smaller, how they decide to change. If they do decide to change the format a bit, I don't know if they're trying to keep it consistent throughout. But yeah, it will be interesting to see also like how the questions change over time.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see how CNN handles the next debates that we'll have come July. I think maybe they'll try something different, seeing how the MSNBC debates played out. But going into also the questions likely being different for the next debates, what do you guys think were some of the policies that were not brought up during the night that you really wanted to see brought up? Will, what do you think?
On night one, I specifically noticed when they talked about climate change that Tulsi didn't get to talk at all, and I think her off act is great, and I wish she would have gotten a little bit of time to discuss that. Um, I think overall, like family leave and childcare were not talked about enough. I know Gillibrand spoke briefly about it on night two, but I think I wish Bernie got a little bit of time to speak on that because I think he has some excellent policies that address that. Um, I think marijuana policy got glossed over a little bit because it's not just um, you know legalize it. It could be more than just straight up legalization. There's a lot of specifics there that could be hashed out. And for me personally, for me personally, I would like to see agriculture and unions talked about. Um, a lot of it is because I live in a very rural area. Like, I have no neighbors for a mile on either side. It's amazing that I have internet enough to do this right now. Um, and I think that applies a lot also to a lot of the key states that need to be won by the Democrats in 2020 to flip the election. States that Trump won that, you know, agriculture is very important to, and also unions, because they're simply under attack all across the country. And they're a lot of what, gives people their standard of living and their bargaining power. And there's only one person that's really standing up for them. And I think I wish that would have been covered more, because I think that speaks to a lot of the most important people that we need to be reaching in this election.
Yeah, I tend to echo a lot of those sentiments not being covered nearly enough, like criminal justice reform, actually talking to the
Mm-hmm.
problems of rural America and how you can actually support the labor movement, make new strides. We know how much unions have helped us. That's why we even have this weekend right now where we can record. We fought for those rights to be able to
Absolutely.
expand worker
Right.
time and worker privileges. So I totally echo your sentiment that those could use some more time. I would say, though, I think one candidate did help bring the conversation about family leave policies. I think Kirsten Gillibrand was one of the few voices that touched
Mm-hmm.
on that at all.
Yeah.
So I think there definitely could be have more conversation across the board, but I think she'd get some credit for at least bringing it in at all into nights 1 and 2. Cynical Centrist, what do you think? Was there any true substance that was a crime that was lacking in the first 2 debates?
Well, first one, I don't know if I heard that much about it here, but I would say workers' rights and unions was definitely glossed over to me. They didn't really talk about that very much, or wanting to bring back strengthening of unions that has been weakened so much by the Republicans, especially under Trump. I think they did talk about repealing the tax cuts a little bit. The Electoral College, there's one that I have actually in
Mm-hmm.
capital letters on my
Here, here.
notes. Now here's the thing with the Electoral College, all right, is back in 2012, actually, believe it or not, this was switched. The Republicans were the ones that were trying to abolish the Electoral College because they feared that they wouldn't be able to win with a popular vote, and now it's being switched. And by 2024, it's expected that the power of that Electoral College is going to go back to the Democrats because Texas will switch and turn blue. So with that, that means that the Democrats, it'll be pretty much a Democrat president under the Electoral College. So to me, I was actually interested in seeing how many of them were going to be like, actually for, getting rid of the Electoral College now, or if they're just kind of hanging on and wait until 2024, 2028, when Texas turns blue and they know that the election will run in their favor for the next like generation. And for a specific candidate in particular, Andrew Yang, I wanted to hear more about one of his big 3 policies of human-centered capitalism. I feel like that if he had put some of his time, maybe during the lightning rounds, where he tried to explain how human-centered capitalism is supposed to work and these new metrics that he wants to create, rather than profit, actually create the metrics of quality of life being more important than profit. I feel like that a lot of people would have been more into his message.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you that changing the American scorecard is a big thing that needs to occur because that is really kind of the root of this anti kind of establishment, anti corruption movement is people feel like they're tracking to metrics that don't matter to people.
Right,
GDP
and
doesn't matter to most people because most people aren't necessarily tied to the stock market and how all these companies are actually performing. So
right, and let me tell
that
you guys,
and just
and let me tell
electoral
you guys,
reform is
sorry,
strong.
yeah, and let me tell you guys this: I am pro-capitalist. I am pro-capitalism over socialism, except for certain areas, and that comes down to elasticity. And if what elasticity means is, how bendable a particular product is. So if a product has low elasticity, that means that it's a necessity, and if it has high elasticity, it is a luxury. Now, I am pro-capitalism on middle and high elasticity products, but when it comes down to low elasticity products like healthcare, we need that socialism. The problem is that capitalism has screwed us so much, and especially with its tax cuts. And even though the economy is recovering, I would say the bottom 80, 90% still haven't really felt the full effects of that recovery. So they don't feel like it's recovering. And they're fearing a recession. Another recession would come in. That's going to make them even more, even more of a problem. So I feel like that these Democrats don't want to hear anything regarding capitalism anymore. They think that the entire system it has failed them. So to them, the answer is socializing just about everything. And I feel like with Andrew Yang's message of human-centered capitalism, people, these especially the progressives, the economic progressives, will be drawn into that and think to themselves, maybe capitalism under this would be okay.
Yeah, I gotta say, I echo a lot of the sentiments you just shared there. I too am someone who kind of falls between camps of socialism and capitalism as economic models because of exactly what you said in terms of elasticity of
Right.
the actual, demand. Because as we covered in our literal last episode in establishing an economic floor for people, it's all based on this marginal propensity to consume, and we actually stimulate our economy when people who are going to use their money have money. So I think that echoes why people like Andrew Yang's proposal for a UBI, where you have a trickle-up economy with new metrics of how we're actually measuring success, actually can be very appealing to people. And I just wanted to note on what you had mentioned earlier of the Electoral College. I 100% agree that just electoral reforms were a major missing point from the debates. We need to have, as Bernie kind of alludes to in taking special interests on, we need to talk about generally just the structure in which government functions so that it actually achieves representation. So I think that philosophical how should government work was a big lacking factor. Josh, what do you think? Was there anything else that we haven't said here that you think was really important that was missing from nights 1 and 2 in terms of substance?
I think, I tend to agree about the Electoral College. I think that was something that should have been definitely brought up. I think that's something that, that is the reason why Donald Trump got elected. And Hillary Clinton did win the popular vote. So I think that definitely is an important issue that needs to be discussed. I'm assuming that when they were coming up with the questions for nights 1 and 2, that they thought that issues like healthcare and gun violence and the economy were more important to cover. So I hope a month from now, when they do the next round of debates, that's definitely an issue that they bring up. Definitely agree with the legalization of marijuana. That definitely, I think, got covered like a little bit, but and they mentioned how I think when I forgot who it was, but one of the from Colorado was talking about it, and how we already have a large majority of states that have legalized it for recreational use. They should definitely go into that as well during the next round. And then also, I think going to science for a bit with the Green Deal, when Kamala Harris was talking about how it's a climate crisis, she mentioned the wildfires in California, and I thought it was an interesting connection that she made when she mentioned how Donald Trump supports people. He endorses, like, in North Korea, Kim Jong-un, and they have obviously nuclear weapons in North Korea. So I thought that was interesting, and how she also agreed that she would get back into the Paris Agreement that Trump backed out of. So I think that was definitely an important issue that wasn't necessarily mentioned too much, but I think needs to get explained more in the next rounds.
Yeah, so that actually brings up a really interesting note in like DNC kind of politics right now is should there just be a debate on how we address climate change? We've had Jay Inslee initially propose the idea, and we've had, I think it's around 18 candidates already endorse the idea of having a debate solely on that topic. What do you guys think? Is that a debate that's worth having solely on one topic? Will, what do you think?
Absolutely. I think it's definitely worth having the debate on. The problem is the DNC doesn't want to have the debate, and they said they'd blacklist anybody that participates in one that they don't sanction. So I think that's a much bigger problem. But I think yeah, it's absolutely worth having an entire debate on.
What do you think, Cynical Centrist? Do you agree we should have a debate solely on one topic?
Depends on the topic.
Climate change.
Definitely climate change. Definitely economy as well, and there are a couple others on top of it as well. So yeah, I'm in agreement with you guys on that.
Okay, and what do you think, Josh? Do you think we should have a debate solely on one subject, especially when it comes to climate change?
Yes, absolutely, I do. We definitely need to have. Wait, I'm sorry. The question was just on climate change or other issues too. I apologize.
Just on climate change.
Yeah,
I was
how
a
do
bit
you address
confused
it?
about that as well. My bad.
No worries. Yes, we absolutely need to have a single debate on climate change and come to an agreement that it is a crisis, not just in the United States, but around the world. If you've ever watched Planet Earth, you'll see it. The walruses are jumping off the cliffs. It is real. Let's do something about it.
Yes, that is a tragic end for walruses committing suicide because it's just too damn hot. So, yeah, I kind of wanted to know, having these lacks in policies from the debates, as well as these real big distinctions in kiddie table versus adult table, how do you think these first rounds of debates reflected on the Democratic Party? Will, what do you think?
Oh, I think it's complicated, but mostly overall, I think poorly because of the whole kiddie table, adult table issue. I think definitely it didn't look good overall for the Democrats to be discussing like race issues amongst themselves. I think they should all be in agreement with that. I think Joe Biden made the party look ancient, especially the way they're propping him up. Um, but I think the amount of policy that was talked about they should be proud of. Of course, they should always try to get more in there, but overall, I think it makes them look how I expected them to look, which is not too good.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think one of the sentiments that have been shared now, both with this group as well as our previous group, is no one can understand how Joe Biden is doing well. Like, it is an absolute phenomenon manufactured by the media, is, I think, my belief. I
Do you
don't
think
get how he
really?
does well at all.
All
But
right.
just, I wanted to kind of ask, Cynical Centrist, what do you think in terms of just how this reflects on the party nights 1 and 2?
It's not just the kiddie table versus adult table. It's the entire format made it look like a giant clown show. And to me, other than the top two that I have on my top three, and we'll get to that, uh, the Republican Party won the debate. I mean, they got to be entertained and laugh at everyone that's on there, and everyone was looking at this like, oh, it's just a bunch of one-liners. I feel like that was just dumb. The way that they asked questions, MSNBC was absolutely horrid and cringy. I'll give you one example. Night two, they asked, show of hands, will you provide health care for illegal immigrants? Trap question. I'm sorry, that's a trap question. And that was completely unfair for them to ask that, especially if they're trying to promote these Democrat candidates. Makes him look. It made him look biased, especially the way that they gave far less mic time to lower tier candidates, especially to Andrew Yang. What they did to Yang, in my opinion, was absolutely criminal, especially Rachel Maddow and Chuck Todd, because during their hour, that half, the second hour, he got 47 seconds of airtime, which was, again, absolutely criminal. And it's clear that MSNBC does not care and don't want to hear different opinions from mid to low tier candidates. Um, and look, these debates, all right, I get it. It's hard to organize 20 people into the debates when you're used to 4 or 5, maybe at most 8 people out on the debate stage. But you could have done this way better. Way better. They could have made this a 3-night thing, put 7 candidates on each night or 6 candidates on each night, and just give them a chance to actually speak and actually bring out policy and actually have real policy, and not about fighting Trump with love, Marianne Williamson.
Yeah, I think I have to echo your sentiments there a little bit, that it was certainly disorganized and there were questions that just set up as fodder for the other side. I don't think necessarily the question itself is a terrible one to ask, if we should have our undocumented immigrants here be able to have health care, but for that to be a hand-raising question, you're just begging for that to be used in attack ads, because no one could actually go into the substance really behind it. So
Right,
I think
because it's down to 2 options, yes or no. And it's like it's not a yes or no question. It's a yes but or a no but.
yeah,
Really, that's one of those where
I agree. I think the other one that was like that, and I think mainly these hand-raising questions in general are just poor form, is when they ask everyone, are you going to abolish private insurance? Because even the proposals that Bernie has, he's not fully abolishing it. He's abolishing a certain set of services that they can provide, because that's now being provided by Medicare. And then you get candidates like Kamala Harris who raised their hand thinking, oh yeah, I'm going to use this government plan, and walk it back the next day that she didn't mean she actually was doing that. So all these hand-raising questions is just terrible by MSNBC, and I hope CNN learns that lesson for the next one. Josh, do you think, even beyond the how it was executed, do you think the ideas helped it still be a positive experience for the Democratic Party, or was this disorderly nature just too much to overcome?
I mean, yeah, there were a lot of, I think there's a lot of criticism from the first 2 nights, and I don't think I necessarily agree that it was a win for the Republicans. While you still had a lot of people who were on the stage that didn't get a lot of time, and maybe those comments that they made, the one-liners I think that you were referring to, made them look maybe a little bit foolish. But I think the people that are going to ultimately, again, be in the top, whether you want to say top tier or when it comes down to the last 2, I think that the people that are serious, who are serious contenders, did definitely do a good job. And I don't know, I just think that that it necessarily wasn't a loss for I just don't know if I necessarily agree that it was a win for the Republicans.
Yeah, I think most of the serious contenders had good nights, minus Joe Biden. Obviously, we've been kind of saying that all along during this episode. But I think if you look at how the people who will end up being there in, like, actually 2020, because we'll have people drop out in 2019, I think those people actually ended up faring relatively decently. I think the actual party infrastructure was the big one to take a loss tonight, not necessarily the candidates themselves, because I think some of them actually helped their chances come a general election from those nights. But in that regard, who do you guys think were your top 3 from both nights combined in terms of performance? Will, what do you think? Top 3. Who helped themselves the most?
Who helped themselves the most? Kamala, first of all. I think Elizabeth Warren helped herself a lot, and I think Bill de Blasio actually helped himself the most, and I think that would be my top three.
Okay. What do you think, Cynical Centrist? What is your top three?
Kamala Harris, number one, absolutely. The objective, like I said, take down Joe Biden. She did it by herself. Objective complete. So great job, Kamala. Julian Castro, I'm going to put in the number two spot.
Mm.
I feel like that he was, even though he pandered a little bit to the crowd, I feel like that he came out looking very presidential in the way that he talked. So I would put Castro number two. And Elizabeth Warren, I put in the third spot, just by virtue of dodging the chicken clucking at night two. So
Okay.
I'll just give that. So basically, she became the star of night one. And as a result, I don't know if it's going to help her too much in the polls, but it's not going to hurt her either.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Josh, what do you think? What's your top three?
Yeah, I think I'm going to keep it consistent for the number one pick with Kamala Harris. I mean, her challenging Joe Biden was it was ballsy, and I definitely think she definitely made not to sound cliche, that she definitely made a bigger name for herself in this race. Number two, I'm actually going to go Kristen Gillibrand. For me at least, going into the debates, I didn't really know what to expect about policy from Kristen Gillibrand. Like, I only knew that she was a senator from New York. I was really impressed of what I have heard so far, and how she was really being aggressive, trying to get time during the debates, and how she had strong references a lot to Bernie Sanders and his policies. And then lastly, I'm going to go with Andrew Yang. Again, I think it was unfair. I agree with Cynical Centrist that he didn't get a lot of airtime, but I think for the moments that he had, he came off really strong.
Interesting. I gotta say, people getting all these search results for Andrew Yang and all this traction from just such little time. Maybe the MSNBC tactic of trying to hold him down, despite him being top 5 from the group, backfired for them. But I gotta say, it's been interesting to see kind of across the board in your rankings how much of the women candidates did great on these debates. I think we all acknowledge Warren did great. I think we all said Kirsten Gillibrand had a lot of moments. Kamala clearly was the dominant person across the 6 responses I've had so far doing these Me in 3 segments. We actually have had all 6 people pick Kamala Harris as number 1. So I think it's very clear she was the winner, just going so strong against Joe Biden. Even Amy Klobuchar, she didn't embarrass herself in that field. I think she, at the beginning of the debates, I kind of thought I had seen a tear in her eye and a tremor in her voice, but she recovered very strongly. So I think women were really kind of the winners from that night, that they have a voice that does need to be heard more in leadership. Is that the sole criteria people should use? No. But these clearly showed to be more competent women. They had policies behind them. Obviously, there's going to be this trust factor, and I am still in the Bernie Sanders camp. But I think women really showed their stuff that night, including Tulsi Gabbard as well, who she started off a little weak, but I think she won the night by the very end because of a killer performance at the very end with her closing remarks and just destroying Tim Ryan. So I think women did well, but now we gotta talk about likely some of those men. Who are your bottom 3 from the night? Will, who do you got?
Okay, so I think my biggest loser is Biden. He's at the top. He's the front runner. He had the most to lose, and I think he lost a lot of it. A lot. I think the second biggest loser was probably Tim Ryan. He got eviscerated.
Hashtag where's Tim Ryan?
He actually released a statement right afterwards saying that was a mischaracterization of what he said. He actually didn't mean that.
Oh yeah, his logic was
It
terrible there too.
It was really cringy. And I think the next biggest loser is probably Beto. He's been losing, but I think that solidified his moment of like, I'm done.
Yeah.
It was terrible to watch. It was cringy again. I think there was a lot of cringy moments, unfortunately, but he was one of the cringiest.
Yeah, I think one of the things you kind of noted there is there's kind of this distinction of who are the biggest losers. Is it the people who really were just the worst, or were it the people that had some little chance and just threw it completely all away? Cynical Centrist, what do you think? Is it really these terrible people, potentially like the John Delaney's, Hickenloopers of the world, or is it really these people who had something to lose, like the Betos of the world?
I got a mixture of both. Now, this person was not my bottom three, but I just had to say Tim Ryan did play the role of John Cena last night because no one could see him. Now, going on my bottom three. Now, my absolute bottom, number one, I'm going to say is Beto O'Rourke, porque su español es muy mal en el debate y no tuvo sentido. My Spanish is better than Beto's, and I had about 6 months of experience on Duolingo. That's all. He made himself look like a dunce out there. Okay. And it made no sense how he just. Now, I know Julian Castro did speak Spanish, but you could tell how Castro knew exactly when to use Spanish. I get it. He's a native, too. But, I mean, he knew exactly when to speak that and when not to speak that, so it didn't sound awkward. Whenever Beto used it, it was so awkward, and you just could not hear any of his policies. And it just made him look like an absolute idiot. That was that one. Second, I put down here the Johns, but specifically John Delaney for being John Delaney. So during the California Democratic Convention, he said to the crowd, socialism doesn't work, and he got massive boos. So he needed to recover from being negative 1% in the polls. So obviously, basically anyone there was not really applauding him at all, and he really did nothing to help his case. I do want to say, though, shout out to Delaney's dogs. Woof, woof. I'm sure both of his fans are happy for that. Third, Joe Biden. He had the most to lose. Kamala Harris absolutely wrecked him. I don't know. I think he's actually going to remain the front runner, but it's going to be a lot closer than people think it's going to be. I do think, though, that as far as Biden's electability, it's looking really bad, and people are going to start thinking twice now because of his working with segregationists and working with people and him being against busing. And I think that that's going to be a serious problem for him in the general, and people will take a look at that and be like, maybe Biden might not be as electable as we think he is. And that could be a problem going up against Trump and the Republican Party. And they'll probably look to a more progressive candidate like a Sanders, Warren. I want to say Harris is progressive as well. And I want to be hopeful and say Yang, but, we'll see.
Yeah, I gotta say, the Johns really put a tarnish on our name. They are just the worst of the worst out there in terms of the actual substance of what they're trying to bring forward. But I think you're right. When we talk about Joe Biden, he had the most to lose. And I think he's going to end up not being really in this race past, like, Super Tuesday. Like, he is falling fast. I think he's receiving help. Even his campaign, after the debates, leaked information to the media saying that Joe Biden is stuck in his old ways and he's not listening to his campaign staff. So when the campaign staff is starting to bleed out to the press that you just can't change and you're an embarrassment and you seem slow on the stage compared to the others, I think that shows really poorly. And I bet you Obama right now is sweating having Joe Biden come into an election and be a referendum on Obama's legacy when it's being so poorly represented via Joe Biden. But Josh, who do you think are really our bottom three from the evening?
Yeah, well, I don't think anybody has mentioned him yet, but Eric Swalwell. I mean, didn't he make a very um, he made a comment after Pete Buttigieg after the whole South Bend police chief incident happened, which I thought was totally harsh on Pete Buttigieg. I think Pete Buttigieg, who actually I don't think has really been mentioned a lot during this entire program, actually had a really strong night as well. And in the second show. So I think Eric Swalwell also just he was very I feel very corny too throughout the entire debate. So he's definitely in my loser category. Number two, I hate to say it, but I'm going to put Marianne in the number two spot. I think I think it's really lack of experience with her. And it's nothing, obviously, as somebody, as a voter, it's personal, but I just think that she might be a little out of her league compared to the other candidates. So I'm going to put her at number two, and then obviously at number three, I'm going to put Joe Biden. He got destroyed by Kamala. Yes, he still might be the front runner, but if that is true, I will say I don't feel confident with him as the front runner, personally.
Yeah, I think you brought up two really great points in bringing Swalwell and Williamson kind of into this discussion. I think Swalwell was super interesting because of the two nights, I think he was trying to be the humorous candidate, and it fell so flat. He kept on trying to use jokes like, we're going to break up with Russia, and we're going to get into alliances, as if it's dating. He was corny throughout, and I think it's important for candidates to have a sense of humor. I think Bernie has a decent sense of humor. Yang has actually a pretty decent sense of humor. And there's a reason why Trump, for being the monster that he is, he's still a showman, and he can get you to laugh even at his absurdity. So I think getting people to be entertained enough so that they then will start actually listening to what the substance is behind it is important. And Swalwell just fell flat on his face. And then Williamson, I think it's a mixed bag for her performance in that people didn't know her going in because she was truly the most out of her element, as you said, being just an author and guru to these influential figures.
Okay,
Oprah.
might I make a suggestion though? Might I make a suggestion? I mean, after what you saw from Marianne Williamson, all right, and I said I'm a sucker for big dramatic closing speeches. You cannot say that you do not want to see Marianne Williamson face Donald Trump in a debate.
I mean, it would be hilarious, but I think that...
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm about to get into. I think
that Trump would destroy her, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
It would just be funny. It would, if you're for the lulz, I think it would be great entertainment. But if you're actually talking about it seriously, then I think that
that's true. That is true.
It makes you think it's a dark comedy.
Yeah, I actually made that suggestion with a friend one night, and we started just adding stuff on it, let's add Vermin Supreme as a libertarian candidate, and then let's add on Bernie Sanders just watching Bernie Sanders' hair as a socialist candidate, and then we can have Warren and Booker make a cameo just looking up at them the way that they looked at Beto, and yeah, it'd be of course it'd be an absolute mess, and yeah, if it weren't for that we knew that one of them was going to be president at the end of it. I feel like a lot of people would get a lot more entertainment out of it. It's a license to print money, but I get it. We have to look for a real serious candidate. Marianne Williamson is not it.
Yeah, I think what she did was make the best case for wanting her to stay in these primary debates solely for the entertainment value. But I think most people, when they got their first glimpse of her, if they saw her on stage and Trump on stage, we would just feel embarrassed. As a nation, we would say, "Is this our best? Really?"
Might as well have Trump
We
debate
couldn't
Sailor
get
Moon.
Oprah. Why Oprah? Why?
I'm just saying, why not just have Trump debate Sailor Moon at that point? I
Uh,
mean, same message. Love, love, love.
it's so true. But now I want to get into what is our now routine closing segment that we do here for these Me and Three segments, which I call the 3-on-3 rounds, where I'm going to be asking you all a multiple choice opinion question, which are policies from the platform that I have. And I'm going to ask you to choose only one of them that you think should be the top priority or none of the above. Does that sound good, guys?
All right, let's do it.
Cool.
Word.
So the first question is, of these three policies, which do you think should be the highest priority? Ranked choice voting, legalizing marijuana, or increasing the federal minimum wage to $15 an hour? I'll start with Will. Which do you think is the one, or do you want to go with none of the above?
I'd probably go with ranked choice voting. I think that helps speed up a lot of the other issues.
Okay. What do you think, Cynical Centrist? Which of those three is most important to you?
You got me, ranked choice voting, because without ranked choice voting, without having the inside, the input, you can't have that output of everything else that you want, whether it be minimum wage, whether it be legalizing drugs, whether it be prison reform, economy, whatever. So it all comes down to the election itself as the foundation of what we want for our policies. So ranked choice voting.
Okay, 2 for 2. Josh, what do you think? Which of those three would you pick? Ranked choice voting, legalizing marijuana, or increasing the federal minimum wage to $15 an hour?
It might be kind of selfish, but I'm gonna go with legalizing that. Good.
With all the delays we have in New Jersey, I can understand that the impatience can claim you. What makes that the high priority for you? Do you think?
Sorry.
Do you think we can do much more via legalizing marijuana
Oh
than
yeah,
this?
and the people that also get just like, narcs for just like having like some like weed on them. Like, I mean, we need to have a lot of like prison reform and like get these guys like out of jail who have been arrested for just like having a little bit of dope on them. Like, I think it's like crazy that still a Schedule One drug, and that also needs to change. I mean, like I said before, like there are so many states that have already made it for recreational use, and like when specifically talking about New York and New Jersey, like it's like a battle, like which state is going to get it done first.
Yeah, I agree, especially when you're going to have this flow between the states that have it legal. Of course, if I'm in New Jersey and it becomes legal in New York, I can go into New York to be able to get it. So you're going to have these economic battles between states. And I think marijuana gets talked a lot about when it comes to criminal justice reform. It's putting people away in this like moral sense, like equivocating it to like alcohol and all these things that we don't arrest people for, this moral problem. But if you also think about it from an economic sense, these people are already contributing to society. They're not harming anyone necessarily. This is a nonviolent offense completely. And we say, because you're deciding to enjoy yourself, we're going to take you away, we're going to spend money on you to incarcerate you, and we're going to keep you away from working a job that might contribute back to society. Altogether, there is a large impact on being able to legalize marijuana. But okay, so we got now 2 people who said ranked choice voting, and we have Josh here with legalizing marijuana. Interestingly enough, from night 1, we had 2 people pick legalizing marijuana, and the other person pick ranked choice voting. So those 2 are now tied at 3-3. So let's go on now to the second question. This is your 3 choices. Would you rather have a $5 trillion green infrastructure bill carried out over 5 years? Would you rather have Medicare for all, single payer? Or would you rather have the abolishment of fracking and offshore oil drilling? I'll start with Will. Which of those do you think is the most important for us to get? Or none of the above?
You have to throw Medicare for all in there, don't you? But I would still have to go with the climate change, the $5 trillion climate change initiative. I think that would definitely be a priority for me. Um, we definitely need it. We have ways of spending that money and finding it, and I think it would do a lot for our economy and far into the future for our economy too, because we could become a leader in that sector, and that would be incredibly important. Yeah, that'd definitely be my number one pick.
Okay. What do you think, Cynical Centrist? Would you rather have Medicare for all, single payer, a $5 trillion green infrastructure bill, or the abolishment of fracking and offshore oil drilling?
Medicare for all, no question. Without taking care of ourselves, we're not going to be able to take care of the environment for one. And so the green infrastructure bill will be basically useless without it. And as far as oil fracking, I'm actually not for abolishing oil fracking, at least until we have proper research that shows it. So yeah, Medicare for all, definitely. And especially that hits personal for me because I actually do suffer from a chronic illness. So I could be a little bit biased there, you could say.
Yeah, I can understand that. And I can understand that not wanting to necessarily abolish it when we can have maybe these infrastructure deals just become more efficient. But yeah, I think there's still potentially value in, stopping fracking of natural gases as well as offshore oil drilling. But Josh, what do you think? Is there a need for a $5 trillion green infrastructure bill, a Medicare for all single payer system, or the abolishment of fracking and offshore oil drilling? Which do you think is the most important for us to get?
I mean, the right answer, in my opinion, it's single payer healthcare. Again, everybody deserves to be healthy, and the right to go see a physician or get treatment when you're sick or you're injured, whatever it might be. And I think it's really important that we start incorporating this as soon as we can. So yeah, that's my decision.
Okay, so we got 2 for Medicare for all single payer and 1 for the $5 trillion green infrastructure bill. Just like our previous question, we are now at 3-3 for this question, as 2 people had picked the green infrastructure bill last time and 1 person picked Medicare for all single payer. So now we're on to our third and final question for the 3x3. So here are your 3 choices. Would you rather have Roe v. Wade become a constitutional amendment? Would you rather have guaranteed housing by investing $20 billion into new affordable housing supply for the 550K homeless? Or would you rather build a standard set of policies that a foreign country must follow for us to do free trade deals with them, including environmental, labor, and civil rights considerations? I'll start with Will. Which of those 3 would be the most important to you?
I would probably have to enshrine Roe. I think that affects it. I mean, it affects half the population. I think that would be my number one pick out of those 3. I think we have to be protecting reproductive rights, and they're under attack. Everything's under attack in this country. It's ridiculous, but I think that would be my number one out of those 3.
Okay. What do you think, Cynical Centrist?
Oh, this one is really tough because actually all 3, okay, all 3 are actually more or less equal for me. I'm gonna go, you know what, I'm gonna go ahead and say because foreign countries, because we have this trade issue right now with others, and we have to sit up and we keep changing the rules on them all the time because of the annoying orange. I'm gonna have to go with the trade right now. Just have a set of rules where okay, you have to follow these rules in order to be trading with us, and I think with that we'll be able to at least help. I don't know. It has something to do with the economy in that way. I really wanted to say Roe v. Wade, but something in me was just telling me like I
I
yeah,
know.
I'm
It's
gonna go with
hard.
trade.
Trade, okay. Josh, what do you think? Which of these three is the most important to you? The Roe v. Wade as a constitutional amendment, guaranteeing housing by investing $20 billion into new affordable housing supply for the 550K homeless, or building a standard set of policies a foreign country must follow for us to do free trade deals with them, including environmental, labor, and civil rights considerations?
I'm actually gonna go with Roe versus Wade. I mean, they said what on the debates that 30 states have like overturned it like already. Like that's insane. I mean,
I wouldn't
we
say
get
they overturned it. I think it's more that it's coming under attack. It's coming under legal review to overturn it.
right,
It hasn't
right.
happened yet, but yes, they are under attack in 30.
Yeah, they can't be overturned until the Supreme Court makes a decision on that. So that's actually been the big reason why people are hoping that Ginsburg stays alive.
Yeah.
Right.
Aren't we all?
Yeah. So I would have to go with that for sure. That would
Okay.
yes.
Okay. So you guys are great at being a balancing act because with that 2 votes for Roe v. Wade and 1 for the foreign trade deal policy standardization, we have now had a 3-way tie of 2, 2, and 2 with last week's episode. So now all of these questions have their answers tied in some respect. So I just wanted to say thank you for doing that. These are truly hard questions, so it's hard putting your neck out there saying that one is not a priority as much. So I also want to be able to thank you all for coming on, this being the first batch of episodes that we're doing for this Me Plus 3 segment. I truly appreciate you all taking the time today to record with me. So I wanted to just now kind of wrap up and give you all the opportunity to just give your closing remarks and plug anything that you'd like to plug. Will, what do you have going on in your life that you'd like to let the folks know out there?
Oh man, I don't have a whole lot going on. I'm trying to finish college, working fast food, just trying to do my thing. Follow me on Twitter. I don't know. I don't have anything to plug.
You want to give the folks out there your Twitter handle?
Puff Crusader 696.
Okay. Yes, go follow them out there, folks. Now, Cynical Centrist, do you want to have anything to share with the audience today?
Yeah, first off, second shout out to Delaney's dogs, both of them on following him on Twitter. Woof woof. I'm just kidding on that one. But if you want to hear more from me, I do have a podcast. I put out podcast episodes weekly on Saturdays. You can go check that out. You can go check out my Twitter at Cynic Centrist because someone took Cynical Centrist, the bastard. And of course, cynicalcentrist.podbean.com. I'm also going to be putting up my old episodes on YouTube starting Monday, and you'll see new episodes on a YouTube channel that will be coming up very soon that I will also put on my Twitter. So basically, everything's on my Twitter. Go check it out at Cynic Centrist.
Sounds exciting. Yeah, guys, make sure you go and check that stuff out. Josh, is there anything you want to share with the fans and friends out there?
Yeah, what's going on in my life. Again, just working in Manhattan in the entertainment industry as an advertising sales assistant. I'm also working in my spare time. I used to do more production work in college and during interning throughout college. I would like to announce that I'm starting a podcast game show. It's called Strong Bonds. It features 4 animated co-hosts debating topics in sports, film, television, music, video games, and politics. So check that out. More coming soon.
Very cool. And you'll also find me regularly over there. As he had mentioned, Josh is one of my housemates. He was gracious enough to also come on one of these episodes. So you'll also be finding me as one of those animated characters. You'll see me over there as a donkey eventually. So I just wanted to thank you all once again for coming on. This was a great conversation with you all. There has been a lot to digest from these debates. But to the fans and friends out there, we have a couple of cool initiatives that are going on for our channel. We are still working through our democratic debate process with our Terrific Tuesday initiative. We have over 1,000 votes currently on the books, but we are continuing to grow that. Come make sure you can actually grade all of your candidates 1 through eventually come July 25. So that's the biggest thing we want to push you to go do. But on top of that, we have also come out with one more initiative that we think is very important to get more traction on, and that's the United Solutions of America. We are trying to figure out actual policy prioritization because we are starting to explore potential new progressive leadership overtaking again in 2020. It's not just the presidential elections that matter, but it is also the congressional races that are going to be happening as well. So that's going to do it for us here at the Hill of Roses. To all you friends and rosebuds out there, stay rosy.